Hello. Hello, and welcome to True Criminals. This is a podcast where we talk to regular people about the crimes they've committed, and crimes in general. Today's episode, we have a guest, we talked to him, I want to call him Richard Opper, and I talk a little bit about this later, but we have a couple segments for you, and I have a guest. His name is Richard Opper, and we talked to him. He's the former Secretary of Defense. He's the former, the top attorney in a place. He's that, from Guam. But anyways, first I'm going to play a segment where Rachel and I sat down. We actually went and did the Barbenheimer. We did the Barbenheimer. Do the Barbenheimer. So yeah, we did the Barbenheimer. We did a Barbie and Oppenheimer double feature with our kids last weekend. And so we review it. We're going to do a review. Who's the real criminal? We'll tell you who is the real criminal when you take Barbie as a movie standalone and when you take Oppenheimer as a movie. Who is the criminal? There are some people out there who have some strong opinions about Barbie. I mean, the world over should have some strong opinions about Oppenheimer, but everybody's upset about Barbie for some reason. But yeah, so that's coming at you here in just a minute. So I just want to let you know that's what we got for you today. I hope you like it. I do want to say, that's all I got. So coming at you now. Here is our review of Barbie and Oppenheimer. All right, so I don't know how to start this. So we're going to do a Who's the Real Criminal review. Who's the real criminal? I'm here with Rachel. We're going to do say hi, Rachel.
Hello.
We're going to do a Who's the Real Criminal review of Barbenheimer, because we saw Barbenheimer last weekend.
Barbenheimer.
I wanted to pair this specifically with an interview I did. I mentioned it during our little mini episode last week that I had a guest coming up. His name was Richard Opper. And I thought, well, that will be fun because we actually went and did the Barbenheimer double feature. And that's about Richard Oppenheimer. And I thought, wow, that's great. And then I found out as I edited the episode just about 20 minutes ago, and I realized during the last possible second that my guest's name is Richard Opper. And so I had the file still saved under Richard Opper. So, but I mean, it's technically Richard Opper. But anyways, too late. I have to pair it together now. Mostly I want to talk about Barbie, though. I don't have a whole lot to say about Oppenheimer. I do have something I do want to mention about it, but mostly I want to talk about Barbie. Yeah, I'll get your opinion on some of this. And obviously I need you for some fact-checking stuff, because I don't know if I'm going to recount it correctly. But, so yeah, we went and saw Barbie and Oppenheimer. About an hour spacing between each movie for lunch. We liked both movies. Mm-hmm. They're both pretty good. Barbie, so one of the things I really want to talk about is that Barbie's getting a lot of backlash. I don't know if it's getting a ton of backlash. I've definitely seen some from Republicans or people on the right. And one of the things they talk one of the things that I knew I'd already heard that it was getting backlash, and one of the things that I knew it would, well, aside from the fact that it's Barbie, right? And the right is primarily like faux masculine.
Right.
And so you can't be right-wing and like something feminine.
Yeah, and they're offended by anything that's catered toward women.
Yeah, so, and so I'm watching it, and some of the things I've heard is that Barbie is anti-man.
Yes.
That's what I've heard. Okay, and while I was watching it, I thought, I don't think Barbie is anti-man, but while watching it, I definitely thought, I can see why people think this is anti-man.
Yeah, well, because, like, when they introduce Ken and they're like,
"Hi, Barbie!"
"Hi, Ken!" He lives for Barbie to look at him.
Yeah.
he only has a good date when Barbie glances his way.
Yeah. And so...
essentially what the Barbie movie does is it portrays men in a way that women are portrayed in, like, lots of movies. Except it says the quiet parts out loud. That's how women are often portrayed. And, yeah, Barbie kind of points it out.
Yeah, and so... that is sort of a central theme of the movie, but it's not anti-man because it's for one, it is pointing it out. It's saying it says it out loud several, like it breaks fourth wall, and it actually says maybe someday it'll be like this in your world, and and so essentially what the movie's about is Barbie. Now, if you haven't, I don't think we're going to put any spoilers in here, but you can get most of this from the trailer. Barbie has to go into the real world because things aren't going right for her in the Barbie world.
Yeah, she has to set things right.
And so she has to go figure out why. And yeah, it turns out that, like, more or less the person in the real world that she's sort of tied to in her Barbie land is, kind of having like a...
Well, the real world is not what she expected it to be.
Oh, yeah. So they go to the real world and Ken goes with her. And, of course, when Ken gets there, he's like... I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be Ken. Fuck yeah. It is basically man world out here. This is great. Trucks and every horses and every president's a man and all the astronauts are men and all the police are men and everything's a man. And so he's just completely blown away. Now, first off, like, for people who would say that this movie is anti-man, it's so stupid because the movie's Barbie. Okay, first off, it's fucking Barbie. so like, would you watch a G.I. Joe? And they've made G.I. Joe movies. Are they anti-women? I mean, They're just fucking movies. And Barbie is a toy that has catered to little girls for 60 years or more. Yeah, it's ridiculous to point out that, okay, a toy personified in this, like, other world where everything is Barbie. The president's Barbie, the astronauts are Barbie, all the main characters are all Barbie. It's ridiculous to say, like, if you were saying that was a real world, obviously Ken would be. He would be like, he doesn't exist for any reason other than, that's just true.
Barbie,
yeah, in a Barbie world, Ken is secondary. And if they were really alive, I mean, he probably would be like, he only exists because nobody plays with Ken. I mean, not like I really know. I didn't play with Barbies, but like, I assume nobody had a Ken only.
Right. Yeah. No. You had your favorite Barbie. I don't think anyone had their favorite Ken.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't...
You had Kens and they were there. And you needed the Kens to, like, fulfill your storylines. You didn't have your favorite Ken. You never took a Ken to bed or anything. And
so, I mean, it's just stupid. It makes sense. And all they're doing is, I mean, really, they created one world, and they said this is what it would be like if Barbie was a world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost exactly like that. Barbie doesn't leave her house and go down the stairs. She just goes out the side of her house and straight into the car, just like she does when you play with Barbie.
Yeah, it's adorable.
And so, just like when you play with Barbie, Ken doesn't matter until Barbie's over there.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. It's obvious. But yeah, I mean, they pointed it out. They say this is how Ken feels, and this is why he feels this way. Then when he goes to the real world, he sees how the real world is, and he says, "Whoa, I like this better." It's not equal, but but it's more.
And he notices it's not equal. Yeah.
Yeah, he notices it.
In his favor.
But then in the end, when he goes back and they try, they end up having like that all comes back to the Barbie land, and they end up Ken more or less. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to
spoil stuff.
Okay, I don't want to spoil stuff, but yeah, let's just say that problem comes back to their world, and then they have to. While trying to fix her own problems, she brings some of these problems from the real world back to Barbie Land. And the way they end up having to solve them, I could see like people kind of saying that, like, ends up being anti-man, I guess, but it's not.
But it's literally them telling the truth.
Yeah.
Them having to speak the truth. And then Ben Shapiro's like, that makes me look bad.
Yeah. So, one of the things I heard today is that Matt Gaetz was invited and did go to the Barbie premiere. And he's on video.
Well, he does like little girls.
Well, I mean, yeah. And so he was at the Barbie premiere, and he is currently out there today voicing how anti-Barbie he is, and nobody should see it. And
yeah, because he literally probably went because he assumed there would be teenage girls.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, probably. But whether or not that was one of the reasons he wanted to go, he probably also went because he got invited to a Hollywood premiere. Yeah, he's fake, and it's ridiculous, and if he's out there telling you or giving you any sort of message, you shouldn't believe it, because he's a fraud. He went to the premiere because he wanted to go to the premiere. So on Barbie, who's the real criminal as far as like the people out there saying that it's anti-man?
Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz is
Matt
Gaetz is a real criminal. Ben Shapiro is the real criminal. I mean, they're just trying to spread propaganda to make people angry. They're not hurting the film in any way. So.
But also the movie is adorable and everyone should see it.
It was a pretty good movie. After we saw the movie, we took a poll. Everybody liked it.
Yeah, we brought our 19 and 17-year-old sons who've never played with Barbies, and they both really liked it. Everyone really liked it. It's a really good movie.
It's really good for a lot of reasons. It's good because it's self-aware. The storyline. My only complaint, and I said this after the movie, my only complaint was that they're a little direct with a lot of their messaging, and then even with a lot of their storyline.
Yeah.
Helen Mirren literally narrates the reason why some stuff is happening. It's like, rather than show you why people are acting this way, they just say, well, this is why I'm doing this, and this is why I'm acting this way.
But some of that, I think, was because it was so meta, and some of it, I think, was to make it not an overly long movie. That
was my thing. I thought they were trying to make it not to be overly long, because it would have had to be 3 hours to... Like Oppenheimer ended up being. But... Other than that, it was good. It was good. I mean, there's a dance fight scene toward the end that I thought was great. It really it was over the top ridiculous on so many things. It knew what it was. That's one of my favorite things, is when a movie could be ridiculous and be completely self-aware that it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It knows what it's doing, and it did it well. So, yeah. I never played with Barbie. Aesthetically, the movie was fine. But my favorite thing about it was that it was creative. It was very, very creative, and a lot of the jokes in it were good. A lot of the things in it, and even I didn't play with Barbie, but I recognized a lot of shit. So
right, yeah, no, it was really good. The jokes were good. Even the ones that were over the top, because they knew they were being over the top, it all still worked really well.
Yeah. And I mean, I've never, obviously I never had a weird Barbie, but I've seen them. I've seen them in the real world.
Every girl with Barbies had a weird Barbie. Every kid who had multiple Barbies had a weird Barbie. It was just part of growing up with Barbies. Yeah. So I mean, I've seen them in the real world, so I know they exist, and it was not a shock to me for them when they explained that this is why this Barbie looks fucked up. Yeah. Because in the real world, everybody has a fucked up Barbie. Sometimes you gotta just cut their hair.
Yeah, so it was good. It was a pretty good movie. And it did great. And, it was paired. Oh, it wasn't paired intentionally, but the internet broke trying to pair these two movies as a double feature. Barbie and Oppenheimer. Okay, so I did an interview with Richard Opper, and I'm pairing this Barbenheimer review with the movie about Robert Oppenheimer. It was a good movie. It was long.
It was long, yeah.
It was long. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. Now, after we saw it, I mean, it's got the aesthetics and everything that you expect from Christopher Nolan. That's in there. It does have sort of a I think, an anti-war and an anti-nuclear war. I mean, obviously everybody's an anti-nuclear war, but I think it acknowledges the problems that have come from, creating the nuclear bomb. I think it's kind of, I mean, that's sort of the point. It's very powerful as far as like its musical score. It was a good movie. Everybody in it was good. It's just long. I mean, it's just a long movie. A lot of history in it. Now, someone we know did say that they would never see it because they would never see a movie that doesn't recognize the damage it did to indigenous people.
Well, because people did live on that land.
Yeah.
The movie pretends like no one lived there, and the movie says that several times. They're like, no one lives here. This is vacant land, and just in reality, that's not the case.
Well, they do, because at one point they mention, what do we do with this land? Give it back, And then
because they say, native people bury their dead on it.
Yeah.
But no, that's not... No, people did live there. Those people were displaced.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that... they didn't acknowledge it. I don't think Christopher Nolan was out there intentionally, like, sneaking that in as a message, like, we didn't do this. I think he's directly pulling from a book, but also I think I'm of indigenous descent, and I did not find the movie offensive or anything like that. So, you can calm your white guilt on some of that. The more important thing about it is, the historical significance of it. I'm not saying that, I mean, obviously I acknowledge that war is bad and the nuclear bomb's horrible. It's the threat that we all live under forever now. But I think that message comes across in the movie. If I had to sit around and be upset about all the horrors and atrocities with every indigenous thing that's happened, I'd have to, not have any friends and not go outside. So I like the movie. We voted on it on that too. Everybody liked it. Of the four of us, our oldest son liked Oppenheimer better.
Yeah, everyone else liked Barbie better.
Everybody else liked Barbie better. Oh, I do want to say that we I think originally before we purchased our tickets, we had planned to see Oppenheimer first and see Barbie second. So that we could watch the taste of the atrocities of Oppenheimer out with something fun. And then when we went to purchase the tickets, I just wasn't thinking. I bought Barbie first. So that's the order we saw it in: Barbie, then Oppenheimer. I mean, it was fine. I wasn't exhausted afterwards. I didn't feel bad about it or anything like that. Cat. Ah! All right. Anything you want to add on that? You have anything else to say?
No.
All right. Who's the real criminal in Oppenheimer?
Who's the real criminal?
Oppenheimer and everyone else in the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
Taft.
Oppenheimer and everyone involved.
The American military-industrial complex.
I mean, I would say Oppenheimer is the criminal there. They pointed out, though. I mean, I don't think he was as self-aware as they make him seem. He seems like, I don't know. I mean, they had to have known what they were doing.
They had to have known, yeah. Because they always play it up like they were like, oh, no one will ever drop this bomb. But it's like, no, they had to know. It's just stupid to think that America wasn't going to drop that bomb.
But, I mean, as far as the movie presents it, the scientists are just going to be scientists, and that's kind of how they are. They don't think about the consequences. They just make fucking horrors. That's that. All right. I did pair this with my interview with Richard, not Robert Opper, and so that'll be coming up here in a bit. I hope you enjoy it. Bye.
Bye.
All right, so I hope you liked that. Attorney General, that's what I'm looking for. Coming up now is my interview with me and Keith. Sat down with the former Attorney General of Guam. His name is Richard Opper, and he has some crime stories. He was a fun guy. He was actually very interesting. He's a normal person. I mean, I know the point of this show is that we talk to normal people and the crimes that they've committed, and we have some doozies on here. So people admit to some pretty crazy crimes. Richard's done drugs and stuff. He's a child of the 70s. He's done some stuff, but we actually didn't dive down, go down that road too much. We talked a lot about like Guam and history and stuff like that. It's a real interesting discussion. So yeah, I hope you like it. Now, one thing that I read through your profile a little bit, you said that you used to have a job where you stole for a living.
Well, that's the story I was going to tell you, my big theft story.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of them, but this is one. When I told my wife what you guys were doing, she said, "Oh, you're going to have to tell them about how you got that job." I didn't want a job. My dad told me if I wanted a motorcycle, I was going to have to get my own money. So I was feeling pretty, I just didn't want to be. I said, "What do you think I could do? Be a stock boy? I can be a bag boy. What?" And he goes, "I don't know, do something you want to do." I thought, there's only one thing I want to do. I'm a normal 13, 14-year-old kid. I want to be James Bond. And so my dad said, "Oh yeah, good luck with that one." But I thought about it for a while. I thought, that's what I want to do. I'm going to be a spy. I'm going to set up a security company. How am I going to do that? I went to this big department store, Rhodes department store in Fresno, and I looked around the floor and I realized that not too many people watching. And I picked up 3 or 4 of the most expensive things I could find that I could slip under my jacket. So then I went upstairs. I looked around for the manager's office. Finally, I found it. And I said, "I got to talk to the manager." And the secretary said, she looks at me, I'm a little shrimpy kid. "Oh, yeah, right. Come back next week and we'll talk to you." I said, No, I got to talk to him right now. There's something very important happening in his store right now. So she gave me a sigh, walks me in the manager's office. I sit down, I pull out this big gold statuette. I think it was a golf trophy or something. And I put it on his desk. I said, "I just stole this from you downstairs. Your store is wide open to thievery. What you need is me and my gang of kids, because I'll put this gang together and we'll go through the store. Nobody will notice us and we'll see what's going on and we'll report back to you." So the manager is this silver-haired guy. I'm sure he's heard a lot of stuff, but I think he was kind of smiling, thought this is all kind of entertaining. So he said, "Oh, I think we can use you. Yeah, this is a great idea." I couldn't believe my fortune. I'm going to put together my little group of Baker Street irregulars. We're going to have a job. So, "Yeah, you know what? I've got these issues in the stock room. I want to give you a job. I'm going to make you a stock boy, but you're going to be undercover. I want you to report to me if you hear or see anything." And it took me about 3 days to realize that I just got a job as a stock boy, because there's no nothing going on. And the whole thing was just, he was entertained by my approach. So my thievery got me a job.
You didn't leave the store though, right?
Okay, get technical on me. Yeah, I didn't leave the store. I took the easy way out. I went right up to the manager's office. At the time, I wasn't thinking that this is probably a good way to reduce the risk of me getting in trouble with this deal. But yeah.
So when you did work there, especially when like any of your younger jobs or this place, did you ever? What did they sell actually? What did they sell?
It was a big department store, so they had all kinds of stuff like, ceramic things and light furniture and stuff to put on it, and kitchen stuff and all kinds of doodads and clothes.
You never messed with it. You probably stole time, I'm sure, but you probably didn't. Yeah.
I can't think of actually walking home with the goods, because you remember when I got the job, I was supposed to be an inside man. Yeah. So I thought I was going to be, I'm going to be the secret inside guy. And that was the big joke on me. I made whatever it was, $1.38 an hour. We got a grocery store near us here in San Diego. It's right next to a high school, charter high school. And they basically have closed the doors to the kids. I mean, it's just, the kids at lunchtime would flood through that store. And when they were out, it was like the shelves were empty, but nobody went through a cashier.
They have the, self-checkout lanes in, most stores now. And the people that work at the stores refer to those as the steal lanes, because people just walk everything through there.
Well, I just got back yesterday from buying some lights at Home Depot, and a friend of mine was going to help me put them in. And we took out the old lights, And he said, you know what? We should just take these old lights and put them in the box, and you can bring them back to Home Depot and get your money back.
Okay, well, I mean, so I don't think I've done that exactly, but I've done something like that. In fact, I can remember my mom doing that with like an air mattress one time.
Oh.
Yeah, we got it, and yeah, she went and bought a new air mattress because the one that she had, like we were about to go camping, the one that she had got a hole in it. So she just went and bought the exact same one and then came and then swapped out the broken one, took it back and said, hey, it's got a hole in it. They said, okay, gave her her money back. So then she just replaced her air mattress for free.
Well, pilfering is like a low-level thing, and it's hard to believe anybody's going to die from it. But crime can lead you into bigger troubles. And my gosh, when I was on the other side of this picture, there were people who landed up in jail for basically just trying to get food, going to the grocery store and getting food, coming out without paying for it, and the cops would bust them. And for part of my life, I was in a legal services office trying to help poor people. And you hear some pretty sad stories. It's not easy to make a living sometimes.
Yeah. And so, I mean, a lot of that's like sort of what I like to do on this show is to think about, I mean, because there's so much crime out there that we call crime and everybody does it. But I mean, a lot of times it's not malicious. It's not people committing crimes because they're evil. It's people committing crimes sometimes just because,
necessity.
Necessity. Or I mean, there are times when like it maybe seems like it's the norm, and then there's some people who get held accountable for that, and then there's some people who don't get held accountable for that. It's sort of like when I was thinking, where right now they were talking about how they just went to they spent all this money to like search for and try to find those people in the submarine, and then but around the same time, not that long ago, there was a bunch of refugees that were lost in a boat. And they didn't put anywhere near the same amount of resources trying to find these refugees. So it's like, some people are seen, some people aren't seen. And when you think about crime, like even like as far as like these little small things, some people are going to be held a lot more accountable for taking that candy bar than other people.
Well, it's really hard to figure what triggers that public attention, because your point is well taken. Like that submarine problem, the whole world watched. There was something about it that everybody wanted to know. Whereas, hundreds of refugees die on a boat capsizing. I guess the world was watching that too. But it's hard to say what it is that captures people's imagination and attention. And that's, of course, what we do. Like as I was telling you, I finished writing a book. The whole idea is what do people want to read? What's going to catch people's attention? What's going to make them think this is interesting? And I think crime is probably one of the biggest things that people are interested in. You pick up a book and you read of some terrible happening, and the next thing you know, you're drawn into the story. What happened? How did it happen? I don't know what triggers interest, but crime is part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously its own genre, and it's been around for a long time, true crime. But it's exploded, especially since podcasting and stuff like that's come about. There's just it's just exploded. It's everywhere in true crime.
Well, because we've got crazier and crazier crimes going on. Oh my gosh, and things going on in San Francisco. I have a friend who writes books about San Francisco crime, and there are some serial killers that have come and gone through that town that have just been nuts. But I guess how can you not be nuts if you're a killer? I mean, I suppose there's assassins who do it for money.
So what is your book about?
Well, my book is about a crime, and it's a couple of crimes that are put together. There was one that happened in San Diego when I first showed up, and it was a body found floating in a barrel in the bay, banging against a tuna boat. And they went and fished it out of the water. Everybody figured it was drugs because this is back in the old days, and turned out there was a body and it was a woman. And it led to this interesting story about a crime that had been committed and a kidnapping and a murder that occurred like 7 years earlier. And my book takes off on that premise, but it's really built about the people who are trying to figure things out. One of whom is a woman pornographer, because you always should write about what you know. So I figured pornography was a good place for me to be. And the other guy, the protagonist, is a harbor cop. And the two of them get together to try and figure out where this body came from and how it got there. And in the process, all kinds of secrets get revealed.
Okay, so this is it's a fiction book though, right?
It is. It's put together from real crimes,
You
but
put together from yeah.
it was really put together from pieces of several crimes. It isn't one big event. So I wasn't sure if I actually tried to retell a real crime, maybe I'd be stepping on somebody's feet. So I made it.
Do you remember what crimes those would have been? Maybe that seeped in through your unconscious, or that you consciously based those off of?
Well, I know about the crime that was the body in the barrel, and that's kind of people around here always say, "Oh, your book is about that." And I was saying, well, it was kind of inspired by that, but it takes off and makes its own story. There was another crime where somebody stole a body out of a morgue. And that was one, that's kind of an unusual crime, you're stealing a body. So I worked those in a couple of these odds and ends, and then a couple of your lesser, more common crimes like simple assassinations and people who get their fingers chopped off.
What are the titles of your books?
There is just one that's been published, and
Okay.
that's the one we're talking about. It's called The Body in the Barrel. It's available on Amazon, easy to find. In fact, if you're interested in it, go to my website. Is basically just my name, richardopper.com. And there's all kinds of information about the book and people who reviewed it, and pictures of the San Diego waterfront in 1973. Another part of the crime that's woven into this story is the importation of heroin out of the Golden Triangle back in the early 70s into San Diego via North Island Air Force Air Base. It's actually a Navy base. And that works its way into The Body in the Barrel as well.
And that's all allegedly, unlike the military was actually importing cocaine to make crack in the 1980s, because that's been proven. So,
well, this is allegations, but it comes from things that really did happen.
gotcha.
And I'm plugged into some of this because, like I mentioned to you earlier in my life, back in the 70s and the early 80s. In the early 80s, I was the Attorney General for the territory of Guam. So I was involved in trying to prosecute some of the importation cases. And I remember once going to the airport in Guam and arresting an airplane. That was pretty exciting.
That's really interesting, because I was a legal expert, an expert witness for the banking and financial industry. And I had, it's very hard to, mostly, in Guam as a territory, we're dealing with foreclosures. And it's very hard to foreclose on a military base house. And most of what I saw in Guam was the military base. How much of Guam is not the military base?
Guam has a rich history. I mean, remember that Guam was discovered for the Western world's point of view when Magellan found it. So Magellan left Mexico and hit Guam, and then he sailed on to the Philippines where he was killed. But this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. So the people of Guam have a long established culture, but it has gotten over time to be an important military outpost. So currently, a third of the population of Guam is probably related to the military.
I was there in probably 2015 or 16, and I didn't see much of a outside world, so to say.
Did you go to, I'm presuming you went to Anderson Air Force Base?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that road from the airport to Anderson is really very new, and it's full of modern development and concrete houses. You go in the other direction, you go south of the airport, and you find an island that doesn't look much different than how it looked for many, many years. And some of it is, although Guam was shellacked in World War II. So that when the US forces came back and drove the Japanese out, the island was bombed almost flat. And so a lot of the original jungles and a lot of villages and important structures were just flattened. But there are little inlets, especially the most beautiful little spots on Guam are little coves and inlets.
Let me ask you this, because I'm really, really dumb to U.S. history and some of these things. Okay, you're talking about so Guam was bombed during you said World War II, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Were they not a territory back then?
No.
They were. No, they were. Guam became a territory, a part of the American world in 1898 as a result of the Spanish-American War.
Okay, so does that not count as? I mean, when I hear about attacks on U.S. soil, you hear about Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, well, Guam was attacked after Pearl Harbor.
Prior to 9/11, the last time American soil was actually attacked was during the Spanish-American War. And you are right, I am wrong. It was Guam was the American soil.
One of the prizes.
attack.
How did they dare bomb America? Well, we were in World War II. I mean, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
Well, it's not.
and then
It's
they
not
went-
that I'm not that I think like how dare they bomb America or anything like that. It's just like I had never.
How did
heard
that happen?
Well, I just
Oh.
yeah, I'd never heard that. I'd never heard. It just seems like if you hear about Pearl Harbor and you don't hear about anything else.
Well, in Pearl
Yeah.
Harbor, Hawaii wasn't even a state technically, which is why that big gap is there. People go, oh, if you ask them, when was American soil attacked before 9/11, they always say Pearl Harbor. Well, Hawaii didn't become a state, and it wasn't even it didn't have territorial status even until I believe 1958, 56.
Yeah, well,
or 58.
it was a territory, but it didn't become a state till the 50s. So, but it was a territory for a long time, just like Arizona was a territory forever. I mean, and Alaska and Hawaii both became states together in the 50s. But I got a heavy dose of this when I was working out on Guam, because out there, political status is meaningful. I mean, Guam is the only place that was an American territory surrounded by all these independent island nations.
So to get
ahead.
back to the crime element or Eric, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was going to get back to the crime element of it. I was going to ask. So, as Attorney General, you mentioned this plane that you had to arrest. Was that like the wildest crime that you witnessed as Attorney General?
We were going to ask
No.
the exact same question.
I'll tell you the wildest crime I was involved with. It's a little bit of a story. It had to do with a prisoner who was had committed murder by stealing a taxi cab and then setting it on fire with the taxi driver and a Japanese tourist in the trunk. So after he burned those people, he was eventually caught and brought to the Guam prison. And so as soon as he was convicted, they immediately started a process of saying, you should move this prisoner to Palau. Now, I really hadn't paid close attention to this, and I got this official letter from the government of Palau saying, we'll accept the prisoner, we'll take all the trouble, we'll transport, we'll send cops to pick him up, we'll put him in the Palauan State Prison, and we'll just keep him here. And my point of view, I was like, I have a crowded prison, and I'm supposed to take care of the Guam community. And so if somebody's going to take a prisoner off my hands, that's great. Come get him. So they came and got him. 2 days later, the headline in the local newspaper, which covers all these islands, is that this guy's getting into bar fights and he's pulling out a knife on people and he's acting like the real horse's rear end that he was all his life and why he got charged on Guam. And so I called up and I found out there is no Palau State Prison. That the governor of this Palauan state had written a letter on official stationery, but he was basically just blowing smoke. There is no place to put him. They picked him up, brought him home to his family, and they told me, oh, don't worry, he's confined to his village. Confined to his village? Well, he wasn't. He was out getting into fights, making trouble everywhere. So I was getting a lot of criticism. How did I ever let this guy out of our prison? How did this guy get loose? He's a murderer. He's a horrible killer. And so I talked to the one association that has the authority to be law enforcement in Palau, as well as Guam, and that was the DEA. So the DEA agent at the time, tall black guy, he was really smooth. And he said, well, let's just go get him and bring him back and put him in jail. I said, okay, Kenny, well, that's a great idea. How are you going to do that? So you and I and my friend who's the head of the prosecutor's office, we're all going to go down there together and we're just going to pick him up and we're going to take him back. I said, I went to law school. I actually didn't go to the judo school and I don't really have don't know how to do something. He said, don't worry, we'll go down. We'll just take care of it. We all go down there. I'm making the story a lot shorter than it was. Trust me. We go down there and this guy's relative shows up and says, it was like one of the Humphrey Bogart movie. We're in this thatched hut. There's a lantern. There's a turning fan. And I'm saying things like, look, you can do this the easy way or you can do this the hard way. Your boy has to come back to Guam. I mean, every trope that you can imagine was happening right there in this room. So the guy said, okay, I hear you. We'll have him turn himself in. I go back to the hotel. That night, a cop bangs on the door, wakes all of us up, says, my guy just assassinated the president, and he's on his way to the hotel to kill us. And they're not going to really, they're going to be busy out looking for him, so we should take care of ourselves.
Did he assassinate the president?
He did. No, it turned out that it was a different guy. It was the same night. Our guy fled because he was worried he was going to get blamed, but it was actually the president got assassinated by this group of people associated with a Korean power plant deal that gone south. These stories are really terrific. I mean, it's just full of all these strange twists and turns. But when you want to know the weirdest crime, I mean, I went back to get a prisoner myself. And during this process, the president of a neighboring country was assassinated. And that was the weirdest crime I was ever in the middle of.
I mean, obviously it's a podcast. We have limited time, but man, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. So you mentioned you were working with the DEA, so they were formed by Nixon. So were you in the 80s? Were you there in the 90s? What was the time frame you were there? As the Attorney General?
I was in Guam for almost a decade, from 78 to 86.
Were you just a lawyer before that? Just a boots
I was
up
a lawyer.
lawyer?
I started as my wife and I met in law school. We went out to Guam because somebody offered us a job and it sounded like an exciting adventure. They said, oh yeah, we'll give you air tickets, come out, work here. So we did. And I ended up working for the AG's office. Then I worked for the school system. Then I opened the first Guam Legal Services office, which is law for poor people. And we started suing the government. And we did okay at that. So that's why when there was a new election and a new governor, somebody said, you should hire that guy. It'd be a lot cheaper for all of us. So they hired me away from legal services and I became AG.
So when you were in private practice doing the legal services, for ease of people listening to the podcast, you're defending bad guys, essentially. And not always, but you're attacking more institutionalized groups as opposed to, prosecuting a single person or a single entity. What was the craziest? Did you ever deal with somebody that you knew was, and I know all defense lawyers have you ever dealt with somebody that you knew was 100% guilty or 100% wrong in their accusation, and you had to defend them and win a case? You don't have to say what the case was if you don't want, but did that happen?
Well, the first thing I should say is that legal services isn't the same as public defender. So we really didn't do crime defense. We fought on behalf of poor people to try, like when corporations, there was this big housing project and they built bad houses. So we sued them all to try and get the houses fixed up.
So it was more litigation.
It was more litigation and working and, bread and butter work for people who were poor, who were getting hauled into court to pay bills they couldn't afford. And you'd try and find ways out for them. And there was a lot of organized crime before. When I was on Guam, it was the last place where a DEA agent had been shot dead in the street. Guam did have a violent past. A lot of weapons hit Guam, both coming from the Golden Triangle. Vietnam was just closing down.
You keep saying Golden Triangle. Once again, I don't know.
Golden Triangle is a term that evolved to refer to an area of Southeast Asia, roughly like Burma, Vietnam, or what we now call Myanmar, Vietnam, and Thailand. And heroin came out of this area in fairly large, copious quantities.
So heroin, huh? Have you ever done heroin?
Big time heroin trouble. It was when I was on Guam, it was just getting over the big heroin issues. I was not a heroin user, but I could tell you it was not pretty. It was doing a lot of bad shit in the community.
Have you ever done any drugs?
Well, yeah, I guess I can admit now that I certainly have done more than my share of marijuana.
I could have guessed.
Yeah, I was to say, you live in California. Comes with the
that
territory.
Probably happened. That might have happened. I'm not admitting or denying anything.
Understand.
Well, so in California, is it legal recreationally?
It is. It's pretty much legal for anything. If you buy it, you can use it. Gummies.
I actually don't smoke marijuana, but I was there for work once again, and the 4th of July fell in the middle of the week and they wouldn't let me come home. So we went to one of my friend's houses in Venice, and we were walking down the boardwalk, and there was a oversized panel van essentially, and it said, medical marijuana cards here, $5. So right. I was like, all right, fine, I'm going to do it. And I checked for my reasons that I could not, that I needed a card was because I couldn't sleep and I had menstrual cramps. Now, I am a born male. I've never had a
That
menstrual
didn't
cramp.
matter.
I Zoomed just like this with a doctor for about 3 minutes, and they gave me my card right there. And on the back, it said for sleep and menstrual cramps. So it was
And be
very
honest, you haven't had menstrual cramps since, have you?
no, not one.
That's what I thought. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever done any other drug other than marijuana?
Oh yeah, because I was a college student out here. So back in the day, we tried LSD and tried the kinds of things that people were trying, mescaline.
So was LSD illegal back then? I mean, I know that like
Yeah,
during the
it
early
still
days.
is. Yeah,
During the
it
early
was
days.
always illegal. Yeah, it was early, but even it wasn't as. I mean, Timothy Leary was doing it in the early '60s, and I was in college in the early '70s. So by then, it was clearly illegal.
Okay. Yeah, because they obviously had to experiment and figure out what things are before they can say, oh yeah, this is a drug and let's keep it
Are we
away.
going to talk about MK Ultra? Because that's like my favorite thing to talk about.
I'm not sure I know what MK Ultra.
It was a government program that supposedly still to this day is going on, but the government eventually admitted they did it from like the 60s to the 90s, where they were giving people hallucinogens unknowingly, medical ones, new ones, to experiment to see how it would affect people. They did it to prisoners a lot, but they would put it, I mean, they even admitted they put it in the water supply of a small community.
Yeah, a whole town. They did a whole town.
Whoa.
So yeah, and this is verifiable, but supposedly the conspiracy theory is it's still going on. But yes, it's one of my things that I can go down the dark hole on.
So let me tell you, this is a messed up story. I may actually take this story out too. I knew a guy, this was a long time ago when I was still a teenager. I knew a guy who worked at McDonald's and he put an acid tab inside a chicken nugget. And then from what he told me, and this is all hearsay, maybe it never happened. From what he told me, it went into a 4-piece chicken nugget.
Which is a Happy Meal size.
So that's...
As a parent who gets his son a 4-piece Happy Meal every week, that terrifies the shit out of me.
Yeah, that's insane.
I know. It's like food is scary. And what are you gonna do? It's also one of the best things we have going. So you just gotta take the pros and the cons.
Right.
If you piss off a waiter, goodness only knows what they're gonna do to that plate on the way.
Oh geez, my sister is like the worst at pissing off waiters. I imagine she has eaten so many boogers and shit in her life.
I had a teacher in 7th grade. She was my Spanish teacher, and she told us, when people were rude, she said she worked at all kinds of restaurants and you couldn't get away with it. But then she worked at a Mexican restaurant, and because of the sauces and everything, you could hide whatever you wanted in there, and no one would be the wiser.
Yeah, that's
so. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So don't ever be mean at a Mexican restaurant.
No, I'm always really sweet to everybody. I like my eating.
You should be nice
Did
to
we
everybody.
lose you, Richard?
No, but you're frozen on my screen. I have you as a freeze, but I'm still here. But
I do want to run through some quick questions of stuff that we
Okay.
normally go through. Like when you were younger, high school, or even now, but yeah, mostly it happens when you're in high school. You ever vandalize anything? You ever toilet paper a house? You ever spray paint anything you shouldn't?
oh, I'm sure I TP'd some houses with friends when I was even younger than high school. But real vandalization, I kind of don't remember any.
Okay.
Not to say it couldn't have happened.
So you think you've ever broken a mailbox with a baseball bat or anything like that?
No, I'm pretty sure I didn't do that.
Okay. That went on a lot. That happened a lot more before my time. I saw it in all the movies, and some of our older guests have definitely told us about it. But
Yeah, I don't even think I threw a baseball through a window. I'm trying to think of what I could have broken, but nothing is coming to mind.
Okay. What about when you were very small, or up to today, when you were very small? Did you ever shoplift?
Oh yeah, I mean, gosh, I have to say it's probably when I was young, I was so crazy for comic books. And if I didn't have enough money, I might have slipped a comic book under my t-shirt and whistled my way out the door once or twice.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm ashamed. I'll pay for it.
Yeah, are those shops still there? Do you remember what
No,
shop?
this would be a long time ago in another world on the other side of the world.
So have you ever actually been in a physical altercation? Have you fought somebody
Yes,
as an adult?
I have been in physically challenging situations as an adult. And I was in a rather big fight when I was a quasi-adult. When I was younger, I was a firefighter, a forest firefighter. And there was one time we were fighting a fire up in Idaho, and two teams of hotshots got into a big fight. And furniture was breaking. It was in a bar. People all had knives.
Oh, wow.
So it was a pretty big fight.
So you didn't get stabbed or cut?
I didn't get stabbed, and I don't think anybody got stabbed. Everybody carried a knife, and people were waving around, but there was a lot of thumping and chairs being broken over people. And I was probably in my 20s.
Now, have you ever actually been arrested?
Nope.
Okay, so most of your tickets or anything like that have all been like speeding, parking, stuff like that.
I was gonna say, as an attorney, you don't fight those?
Nah. Well, I fought a couple tickets, but that's nothing. I mean, that's just life. I mean, I've gotten out of some of them.
What is the fastest you've driven on the highway?
Oh, probably not more than 100.
You live in San Diego. The fastest you've gone is probably 25.
Oh, probably.
Yeah, right. On local highways. But at night out on the way to Las Vegas is long, empty, straight road. I probably cranked up. I used to have a supercharged T-Bird that would go pretty fast, actually.
So you're talking over 100?
Yeah, probably over 110.
Oh, well. Yeah, Richard, it was fun talking to you. Now, you want to plug your book? Tell us where. Yeah, I know you mentioned.
Well, I would. I mean, really, the reason I thought you guys look like a fun podcast is your whole crime angle, because my book is a book that's built on a crime. Even though, as I mentioned, it's not really one crime, but little bits and pieces of several. It's a lot of fun to read. And it's basically, I was inspired by the great Japanese filmmaker Kurosawa, who made a movie called Rashomon. Yeah, and in Rashomon, it's about this terrible rape murder that occurs. And everybody gets to say their point of view. What happened? How did it happen? And at the end of the book, a voice, it's heard from the dead, and it's the victims speaking up about their point of view. And that whole idea that it takes lots of point of views to really get at the truth of whatever happens anywhere, that's really what's behind The Body in the Barrel. I am guaranteeing you, pick it up and start it, and you'll think it's fun. You'll read.
I mean, it sounds interesting. I'll be honest with you. I've had some other guests on here who've pitched books, and I mean, this one does. You sound like the most interesting one.
Yes, that's why I wrote it down. I said I'm going to read the other ones, and I got about a chapter in and stopped. It sounds like this is up my alley, so I'm definitely going to
get 5 pages into this, and you're reading it. I'm promising you.
All right, I'm going to contact you and let you know.
I would really appreciate it.
Unless there's any other last minute crimes you want to admit to, if you want to finally get it off your chest.
No, because I'm not talking about the murder. That's going to be too much trouble.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Hey guys, it was good talking with you. A lot of fun. Good luck with the podcast.
All right.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. So yeah, that was Richard Opper, heimer, cousin to Robert Oppenheimer, and author of the book The Barrel and the Body. He's not actually the cousin of Robert Oppenheimer, but if it helps you get through the night, then yeah, he could be. All right. That's all I got. You can always contact us at true.criminals.podcast on socials, at criminalstrue on Twitter. Email us directly at truecriminalsjailpod@gmail.com. If you'd like to come on the show, tell us about your crimes. If you just have a funny crime story that you'd like me to just read for you, I could do that. So, and everybody's done something out there. Go back and listen to some of our back catalog. I tell a story where I robbed a house. So, all right. Thanks for listening. Oh, thanks to Keith for sitting in with me. Thanks to our guest, Richard Opper. Thanks for Rachel. Thanks for Rachel for sitting in with me and helping me review Barbie and Oppenheimer. All right, stay criminal.
Doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number two. All my life been so polite, but I'll sleep alone tonight.